Yeah, we are delay.
Go ahead. Hello, everyone. Welcome again to Facebook Live session to Ministry of Agriculture. My name is Joanne Singh, and I am here to do a presentation on an introduction to layer management. Okay, so layers. What are layers? They are domestic chickens or ducks that produce eggs for human consumption. But in Trinidad, we don't really have much duck eggs being consumed. It's mainly chickens. And we have like two major types of layers, commercial type layers, and then we have the common fowl backyard type birds, which people are familiar with and is known as yard fowls. So factors of layer rearing. Basically, I just divided this into broad topics. So we have housing, nutrition, health, husbandry, and biosecurity, which I did in my previous presentation. A whole presentation on biosecurity was done. So you all should be familiar with that. And then there are different phases of layer rearing. So the first thing you look at is where you're getting your chicks from. And then you have a brooding phase. Then it goes to growing, pre-laying, laying, and then you have your hens that don't lay anymore, so you need to dispose of them and restock. So basically, I'll be going through this briefly because this is just an introduction on how to start up doing your little layer production. So how do you source your chicks? Okay, well, if you want to do backyard farming for yard fowls or common fowls that we have in Trinidad, you can get your local backyard farmers to provide chicks. So those chicks are basically found locally and they don't really have any sort of breed characteristics. So they're just like common fowl. That's what we call them, right? And then for the commercial chicks, these are chicks that are bred for layers, layer production, eggs. So those can be sourced from local suppliers as well. But these suppliers normally import. Or if you want, you can try to import your own chicks based on your supplier from abroad, but you have to check with the Ministry of Agriculture first in order to get permission to do that. The key point here is that you ensure that your chicks are healthy from the start. So some considerations, right, to take note of would be that backyard chicks in Trinidad are not typically vaccinated for anything at all. So they're just there roaming. And the commercial chicks that are typically imported, they are normally vaccinated against Marex, which is done at the hatchery at 1 day old. So that's a disease for those of you who don't know. All chicks, though, should be put on a vaccination program, which will be the ideal situation. Again, I am just given a guideline as to how to go about starting your operations. This can be changed or altered based on your individual situation or the products that you are getting locally. So this is just a guide to go by. It is not something that you have to stick, to religiously. For further information, you can always consult the PSU, right? So the vaccination program that I'm recommended here will include vaccinations for these diseases, Newcastle disease, infectious bronchitis, infectious bursal disease, and fowlpox. And I have a table showing you the days at which these vaccinations are done. All right, just a little points here for vaccination. Vaccines can be purchased locally. Depending on the brand or what type of vaccines you are buying, those vaccines are stored in the refrigerator. You need to use dechlorinated water to mix those vaccines. You starve your birds from water about an hour before you vaccinate so that they drink all the vaccinated water out. You always wear gloves and you use milk to prepare your vaccine based on which brand you are using and the instructions given. Right, so this is just a continuation of how you do your vaccination. Of course, all advice on vaccine protocols is available from the PSU, which I will give the contact information at the end. So what about your housing and equipment? So basically, when you want to start up your layer production, you have to make sure that all your regulations for agriculture and everything is being adhered to, like land governing regulations. And your houses, when you are planning to build your chicken house or pen, should accommodate all growth and production phases of the birds. So you have to plan ahead. Small birds will take up smaller space. When they grow bigger, they need bigger spaces. All right, so you have to cater for that. And you need to provide for their well-being, growth, and production in the space that you're providing. Right, so space requirements for brooding will be 0 to 6 weeks average. It could be more or less, 1 week, give or take. But these chicks are the baby chicks and they need special care and attention, right? So basically, for instance, the space requirements for your brooding phase, basically it's like one chick needs a 3/4 foot square space. So you calculate how many chicks you have and you just multiply by that number to give you your total area that you're requiring for brooding. Bear in mind that after your brooding phase, you have to expand to make room for the bigger birds because they will be growing, right? So just have to make sure that that is being considered at all times. So what is needed for your brooding phase? A heat source is necessary because chicks need the heat source in order to regulate their body temperatures. They can't do it on their own, right? So for instance, an infrared light is recommended, right, per 500 birds. So of course, if you have less than 500 birds, you don't need more than 1 bulbs. You just need to regulate the heat, all right? If you have more than 500 birds, then you maybe need 1 per 500 birds. Your feeders, the regular feeders that you can buy, 1 feeder pan per 50 birds, drinkers, 1 bell drinker per 50 birds. So that is how you can use the guide here to provide for the number of birds that you may want to, start off with. You need a screening material, like example, bags, tarpaulin, etc. You need feed, you need your water, and you need to aim for even distribution of your chicks when you place the equipment down. So if you're placing 2 or 3 feeders, they should be placed evenly throughout the space that you have. Right, so first of all, you need to have a clean space. So you clean and you sanitize your area. You make sure that your pen is secure, which means it is blocked around with some sort of material to prevent entry of other animals, because baby chicks might be really nice food for other animals and they will just come and destroy all your chicks. So you just need to make sure that it's secure, right? And you need to spread like wood shavings on the floor. You can't put them on a concrete floor or just plain dirt or anything like that. You need to have this wood shavings on the floor. You cover that with newsprint or brown paper because it's baby chicks you're dealing with. And of course, you install your heating lamp. You place your feeders, your drinkers, you screen off your pen with your bags or tarpaulin so that you can be easily removed when necessary. You're making sure that you have ventilation, but the ventilation should be such that drafts are not able to enter the pen, rain or wind on that kind of thing, because you want the chicks to be as comfortable, warm and dry, because they need to have that sort of environment to grow properly, right? And you observe the behavior of your chicks, right? Proper brooding is necessary for laying the foundation to produce a good bird. If you don't have proper brooding, your bird will be compromised eventually and you will not get, optimal production. So basically your house should be prepared and fully functional at least 2 days before you receive your chicks. So on the date you're receiving your chicks, you make sure you prepare your pen before that. So when they come, they are actually going into an environment that is already prepared. Less stress for them, right? You have temperature guides and everything. All of these equipment could be purchased locally. Temperature thermometer to test the temperature of inside your pen. But even if you don't have that, you can see from the behavior of your birds if they are comfortable or not. Some people might not be able to afford all of these things in the first instance. So I'm just giving you a guide here as to what to look for so that you will know if your chicks are comfortable or not. So you're looking at the distribution of them. right? So even distribution of chicks is what you want. If you see huddling, that's a problem. For instance, this diagram shows that this is the light source. This is the light source here, and you are seeing the chicks huddling under the light source. So that means the area here is too cold, so they are looking to get heat. So they are huddling underneath the light source. This one shows where it is too hot. They move away from the light source because that's where the heat is. So they are moving away from it. Another one here shows that if there's a draft, so there's a draft coming in this way, that means the chicks are moving away from the draft and they're in one corner here. You don't want that either. This is what you are aiming for here, where all the chicks are evenly distributed, and it shows that it is the correct temperature. So this, you do not have a thermometer here, but you are actually seeing by the behavior of these birds that they are comfortable, and it's probably more or less the correct temperature you're looking at. So you can tell by just looking at them. We go on to nutrition. So water is part of your nutrition in this instance because it's very, very essential, right? So your drinking system that you're using, you make sure it's clean, sanitize it, and you can put 50 grams of vitamin C per liter for the first day. If your chicks are dehydrated, depends on where you're getting your chicks from, if they have to be transported over long distances and all that. So it just helps with the stress level and hydration. Your drinkers will be 1 bell drinker per 50 birds. This is for brooding, right? So brooding is the first stage. And your feed, you put your feed down around 4 hours after delivery because you want your chicks to be fully rehydrated before they start feeding. Because if they start feeding and they're still dehydrated, it causes more problems because you want them to be fully hydrated first to help with their systems, and then the nutrition will come in there where it will be absorbed and distributed properly. So you just make sure you take note of these few little things. That helps a lot. It might seem minimal, but it is very helpful, right? And of course, your drinkers should be cleaned and refilled daily. For your brooding period, you start with chick starter, and that chick starter must have a crude protein content of between 20 to 22%. You will see it on your label, or whoever you're purchasing from, you make sure that that is one of the requirements on the the percentages on the ingredients label, right? And the feed must be in a crumble form because these are baby chicks and they can't eat large pellets. So you have to give them a feed that is conducive to their beak. Their mouth size is very tiny. Otherwise, they would not be able to consume enough and they would not be able to grow, right? So just bear all of these things in mind when you're getting your feed. And I'll move on to debeaking here because it's at this stage, in the brooding stage, where you might want to do your debeaking. Debeaking is a preventative measure against cannibalism or picking, vent nipping, fighting, when they pick at each other. And when they pick at each other and the blood starts coming out of them, it becomes a vicious cycle in that they don't stop because they get sort of addicted to that. So you don't want that to start. So what you do is that you prevent the beaks from being that sharp so they can't do it. And in order to do so, there's a debeaking process. Now, there are many, many debeaking processes. I am just going to go through a basic one here, but depends on what you want to do. We can always advise, all right? So one of the common debeaking methods we have in Trinidad is a hot blade, or it's basically an electrical cauterizing blade, right? And it's done at 7 to 10 days old. So you may require a second treatment at 8 to 10 weeks old, depending on how well it was done or how effective it was. You would see the growth of the beaks, all right? So basically, you have to make sure that your birds are healthy and not undergoing any vaccination at the time. You can add vitamin K to your water to prevent hemorrhaging after the debeaking. And you have to make sure your temperature of your blades and everything is being properly monitored. It will be in your instructions of your machine that you're using and all that. All right, so another thing that you can do is when you debeak your birds, you increase your water level in the drinkers and pressure in the pipe for maximum access to water. And the depth of the feed, you don't want the depth of the feed to be too small that the beaks are reaching the bottom of the pan. because it damages the beaks, one, and two, it is more stressful for the chicks to pick the feed up. So you just do these little things to alleviate any unnecessary stress of these baby chicks that need special care and attention to grow properly. So we will go on to the pullet or the growing phase, which is after brooding, right? The pullets are birds that have not started to lay. So they are young hens, basically, but they have not started to lay as yet. They are moving from brooding to where you're trying to get them to the point of lay, which is sexual maturity. So the growing phase is also very important in that you have to consider a lot of things in order to bring your birds to optimal maturity and production. So it basically lasts from the 6 to 15 weeks. And the common system in Trinidad is a floor system. Our climate is hot, so basically from brooding, you're gradually removing your partitions, which were the tarpaulin or the bags that you're bagging up your pen with, from the brooding area to expand the rearing space. So when it might have been a small area of the pen now, you are expanding your area now by removing the partitions. And you are basically gradually switching from your starter to grower feed. And your feed now will be a little bigger in the particle size. Your ultimate stocking density that you're looking for is to reach 1.5 square foot per bird. But that is ideal for our conditions. If you can't do that, it's just maybe 1.3, 1.4. You could try with that. But all your other conditions have to be great. All right, so your feed now is 14 to 16% crude protein, so it's dropping a little. And your aim is to achieve the target body weight for age. And your flock uniformity is what you're looking for. So the size of the bird should be uniform all through. According to the ISA Brown Layer Management Guide, which is a breed that is available from the US, this information is from their handbook. You are looking at 5 cm or 2 inches feeder space per pullet. That means 1 feeder pan per 25 birds, right? So basically, you have to increase your number of feeders when they get bigger. And your feed, again, should be in a crumble or pellet form. And your target weight that you're looking at for these birds now at the end of this growing phase will be around 2.6 to 2.8 pounds, right? So that's the average weight you're looking at for them to grow to. Right, so pre-laying is when you're, after you reach 15 weeks, 15 to 18 weeks is your pre-laying, because they are kind of entering now into a pre-lay period where very soon they're gonna start laying. Right, so at this critical period now, you're preparing them now to reach that stage and to start laying your eggs for you, right? So your target weight here will be maybe 3.3 to 3.7 pounds, around there. And your feed now should contain adequate proteins, phosphorus, calcium. Supplemental calcium is recommended at this point. So because remember, calcium is needed for the shell of the eggs. Oyster shells, liquid calcium preparations, all those things are available. You can get more advice on those supplements from the PSU as well when you are ready to organize yourself. And at 18 weeks old, all underweight birds now should be culled, which means you're removing them from the flock because they will be utilizing your feed and they will not be able to give you your optimal production levels. So you will be losing money. So in that instance, it's better to take them out of the flock and only feed those that are going to be producing maximum. So at 18 to 20 weeks, around there, your first egg, you might probably see it by then. So your feed now is going to be a 15 to 18% crude protein, and your calcium is also going to be continued, because this is the point at which calcium is being depleted a lot from these birds, and you need to supplement it back into the feed in order to carry out your production continuously, right? Of course, you need to put nest boxes in, and according to the Novogen Layer Management Guide, they were suggesting 1 nest box per 7 birds. Now, when you put down your nest boxes, you will be able to see for yourselves if you need to put in a couple more, or you need to take out, or every individual situation will be different. And especially our local conditions here is not basically those large commercial operations in the US. So we're just using it as a guide. All right, so you clean your nest boxes, and they should be placed 2 weeks prior to the onset of lay. So if you calculate in laying, it's going to be at 18 weeks. You are going to put it in around 16 weeks. All right, so you will see the size of your birds and you will see their behavior, right? And your flock should attain 5% production by 24 weeks of age, and then according to how they laid, it will be climbing steadily, and then it will plateau where you will have maximum, and then it will start to decline again. So some key points to consider, right? Birds should be always comfortable, and they should never be stressed. You have to make sure your temperature, your humidity, your ventilation, your lighting or lighting intensity, feed and supplementation, all those things are optimal. Now, all of these things each one of these things could take a whole presentation, so I can't go into every single one in detail. I'm just mentioning them here, right? Your water quality is very important as well. For instance, if you're using water from a pond or so, you can use chlorine crystals at a rate of 1 ounce per 100 gallons of water to make the water potable, right? Or liquid chlorine bleach at a rate of 1 ounce per 8 gallons. So you can make your water more potable for your birds by just doing these simple things. Right, so your biosecurity, of course, is very important at this point too. I did a whole presentation on that before, so that was done. Your wheel baths, your foot baths, your cleanliness, you secure your feed properly, your coveralls and stuff for your workers, proper dead bird disposal. All of these things have to be considered, and make sure everything is being done in a clean and very safe way in order to avoid diseases to come into your flock, because when one bird gets something, the whole flock going to get it, right? You just have to prevent all of these things. You observe your birds daily for abnormal behavior. If you see something abnormal, call your veterinarian or call the PSU, because you need help at that point to see what you need to do. If you can treat them and let them recover, or you need to dispose, or whatever it is, it's always there. We are always there to help. So this is just a nutrition guide that I composed myself based on experience and based on things that I said previously, with your different phases and your different crude protein content and all of that. So it's just a summary, really. Of course, when your hens are around 8 weeks old and they're laying declining, you need to get rid of them, because you're going to be losing money at that point, and you don't want to keep feeding these hens and you're not getting the returns. So there is a market for spent hens in Trinidad. They are called Xlayers or layers. I'm sure everyone is familiar with that. And they are sold at flock shops, and they are very, very popular because they're not expensive, and it's a good source of protein as well. And it tastes really good too. So that's a byproduct of your operation. So you have nothing to lose. So in summary, you have basically these phases here. When you source your chicks, you go into brooding, you're growing, you're laying. But remember, your disposal of your spent hens happens around here, and you need to have a replacement stock in the meantime waiting to replace these. So this sourcing for chicks again will happen sometime between this laying and disposal here. And we can go through that when, if you are serious about your operations, you can always call us and we will help you decide when that will be, according to the size of your operation and how long you're going to be doing it for. Right, so I just wanted to show you what the commercial pullets will look like on a local farm in Trinidad. And that's your backyard, which is the common fowls. And this here is just showing you some designs of some little backyard operations that you can do for yourself, or you could go up on the internet and look for backyard operations, and you will see so many different nice designs that you can do, or even just simple ones, very, very simple ones. Like if you just have about 3 or 4 birds, you can do very simple ones, and you can have eggs coming in every day in your backyard, and you don't have to buy it in the supermarket. So that was my presentation, and if you all have any questions, I would answer them now. But first, I would like to also put up our contact number here, and email address, in case you all want to contact the Poultry Surveillance Unit or email us at psunadc2016@gmail.com. We we can probably try to help you. And also, I would like you all to tune in next Tuesday for part 2 of this, which will be common problems and conditions encountered. All right, so I will just put back up the screen here so you'll see the number and the email address, right? Okay, so someone wants to...
Oh, the
PowerPoint. Is not available on the Facebook?
It's subsequently available.
Subsequently, it will be available on the Facebook page.
As a video.
As a video, so you can go and look for it and it will come up and you could see it. All right, so if you have further questions, you could always post them up in the chat and I will look at them and I can answer them on the chat as well. So that's it for today. Until next time.